What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, well, we have part 4 of the white paper. I don't think that this is the last one. I think there might be one more. Let me just double check if they say anything at the bottom. No, they do not. This is hefty, all right? So this thing is a 16-minute read. I did a once-over already, so I know all the main points, but I'm just going to warn you ahead of time. We're going to do a deep dive into this portion of the white paper because there's a lot to really consider. So I'm going to go just kind of section by section and actually give my thoughts as we go along because I don't want to have to come back to it. Really, I'm going to forget to come back to certain things. So this is part 4 of the phase 2 white paper. This is going to cover storage, markets, and desalinization. So, all right, there's a couple of links to the first 3 posts. All right, so the desalinization process, each region contains critical infrastructure that aids with the production, blah, blah, blah. All right. Luckily, scholars have discovered a way to harness dark energy into a new type of crystal. With a unique chemical structure that can extract salt from whatever is around it. Players will be able to create or otherwise acquire these new desalinization crystals and contribute them to their region to remove excess salt content from the soil and water, because Praetoria is just full of salt. So this makes the infrastructure less costly to maintain, which allows players with land plots within the region to pay lower taxes and fees, as well as enjoy increased production from their land. So all of these maintenance costs and things like that can be reduced, I'm assuming, at the regional level for desalinating all of the region. So let's actually get into it. So desalinization crystals, or DC, so this is going to get very confusing because we're going to have DC and DEC, dark energy crystals, are a special resource that will be able to be purchased using a fixed amount of DEC or vouchers, and they will also be available to be earned through various activities within the broader Splinterlands universe, such as in loot chests from ranked battles or from guild participation. They will be transferable and available within the internal market, just like most land resources. So, as it stands, from my understanding, there will now be another token that's given out kind of as a reward in your reward chest. So it's not just SPS, but there will be a financial or monetary reward for in your loot chest or even from guild participation, which are going to be this DC, desalinization crystals. So the exact details around the cost of DC and the methods for them earning them in game are still TBD. I don't know how I feel about that yet. It caught my attention right off the bat because I was like, oh, okay, well, now there's more stuff for people and bots to dump on the market. But either way, let's just go ahead and jump in. So desalinization, I'm just going to call them DCs, right? So DCs can be used to reduce the salinization rate, SR, in a particular region. Each region will start at a 100% SR, and each day a fixed amount of DC will be deducted from the pool of DC contributed by players to that region in order to reduce the SR by up to 2%. If there's no more DC in the pool, then the SR will increase at a rate of 5% per day until it reaches 100%, or until players contribute more DC to the region. Once the SR in a region hits 0%, it cannot drop any lower. However, the same amount of DC will need to be expended from the pool each day in order to maintain a 0% SR. So this is going to be something ongoing for your entire region. I do like that because I think regions should be coming together. For anybody else who's in Area 51, I think this will be a nice little project for us to come together on and make sure we have enough desalinization going on a regular basis. All right, so the benefits. In order to contribute DC to a region's infrastructure projects, a player must own or be renting at least one plot of land. So they're already talking about renting land. Let's hope that comes in soon. All players owning or renting land in a particular region will receive the following benefits. So they have reduced tax rate from 15% down to 7.5%. Now this is kind of crazy because I thought the tax rate was 10%, but I guess it's going to jump up to 15%. Okay, so reduced market swap fees, 10%. All right, we knew that, down to 5%. Reduced storage rental costs, so up to 50% reduction at a 0% SR. And then production boost, up to a 50% boost in production. So this is actually going to be something that's really, really desirable, and you're going to need to work well with your region, or just be in a region that has some rich dude in it, all right, and who's just going to buy or contribute all the desalinization crystals that they need. All right, so the boost or reduction reduction percentages are linear based on the SR. So for example, okay, so that's all relatively straightforward. It's like a 25% reduction storage rental, 25%. Okay, so that all makes sense. Note that production boost will benefit similar to other production boosts such as those from titles, totems, and Runia. Okay, so let's get to salt. The desalinization process produces salt as a byproduct, which is represented in-game as salt tokens. There will be a maximum fixed amount of salt tokens available to be extracted from each region every day, and the amount is actually extracted will be determined by whether or not there are enough DCs in that region. So if the maximum daily amount of DC are available in the region, allowing for the SR to drop by 2%, then the maximum amount of salt will be extracted from that region that day. So otherwise, proportionally less salt will be extracted. Okay, so very interesting. Salt will be distributed to all players who have contributed DC. So this is the only way to get salt. Keep in mind, there's 2 tokens here, okay? DC, desalinization crystals, and salt. We have confirmation, at least of the white paper draft, that DCs are transferable. I do not know if salt is. All right, so over the past 30 days, in proportion to the amount. Oh, okay. So salt tokens will be distributed to all players who have contributed DC to the region over the past 30 days. So it looks like a rolling 30 days in proportion to the amount they've contributed to the total. Okay. Internal markets. One of the most vital parts of the secret of Praetoria economy is the internal market. The internal market will allow players to buy any of the 50 plus resources. All right. So players will also be able to provide liquidity to these pools and have the ability to earn both the special Elixir as well as DEC tokens from trading fees in return. That's actually pretty cool. Okay. So I thought maybe, well, you know what? I was wondering if maybe the Elixir was going to replace DEC. So right now there's only going to be one pool for phase 1.5, right? It's going to be grain and DEC. And something that was interesting in the 1.5 white paper is that providing liquidity is going to be one of the only ways that you can earn DEC in game, right? So you can also rent your cards, but obviously you can't win it in game. Everything is paid out in SPS. So if you wanted to earn DEC, you could provide liquidity. I thought maybe there was a chance that they would just burn 10% of the DEC and then give you this Elixir resource. But it sounds like if you're providing liquidity, you're going to get both, at least as of now. So one interesting thing to note is that providing liquidity in internal markets will be one of the only ways. Oh, here. Once again, one of the only ways that players will be able to earn DEC tokens in game. All right, so economies tend to be set up in such a way that most players, even those with significant land holdings, will not be able to produce all of the resources. Okay, we know that already. This should lead to high trading volumes. Cool. Each of the resources will have a single pool paired with DEC in the internal market. When players want to swap one resource for another, they can submit a single seamless blockchain transaction, which will swap the first resource of DEC and then swap for the second resource. Yeah, I wish Tribal decks had this because literally every other deck does it. But I digress. All right, swap fees. So there's initially planned to be a 10% fee for all internal market swaps, which, like everything, is subject to change. So half this fee will be burned and can be reduced by contributing to the desalinization process. The other half of the fee will be split up among all players who have provided liquidity. So 5% is going to go to people providing liquidity. 5% is going to be burned unless the fee is reduced. Then nothing gets burned, and it's just I don't know what ends up happening to it. All right, so the fee will always be burned. I'm sorry, and or paid out in DEC tokens. So if a player is swapping DEC for a resource, all right, so cool. So when making a swap that goes between two separate liquidity pools, swapping one for another, half the fee will go to the first pool, and the other half will go to the second pool. When selling a resource for DEC, the full fee will need to be paid. All right, so this is just the kind of like behind the scenes of how it's going to go as a two pool transaction. So when purchasing a resource for DEC, only half of the normal fee for the region will need to be paid. This will help encourage players to put DEC into land rather than taking it out. Very cool. Some players may know that 10% is quite high. Yes, it is, as compared to other AMMs. However, this is different from a DeFi token protocol swap, as we're trying to model the secret Praetoria expansion. Yeah, okay, cool. So, I mean, most other AMMs are going to charge you like 0.25%. I mean, most exchanges will charge you like less than a percentage point, right? So 10% is extremely high, but I think the idea is that it's supposed to supercharge land, right? It pays out the liquidity providers, and it burns a significant amount. Okay, so players will be able to, oh, this is the providing liquidity section. Players will be able to provide liquidity to a particular pool from a particular region by staking an equal dollar amount of specific resource and DEC tokens. Please keep in mind that players will need to have enough storage space in the region for that resource for the entire time that they have staked in the liquidity pool. Please see the storage section. Okay, players can remove liquidity from the pools at any times in full or partial amounts, at which point both the resource and DEC tokens will become unlocked. Please keep in mind that the amount of resources and DEC you will have in the pool vary over time. They talk about impermanent loss, which we're not going to get into here, but if you've heard anything about LPs, that is something to be aware of. Now, Elixir, as mentioned in the special resource section of the document, Elixir is a special resource that can only be earned by providing liquidity. This provides additional incentive for players to provide liquidity on top of the DEC fees they will receive. Elixir is expected to be an essential resource within the land economy when it is required in order to combine essences with magical resources in a laboratory to produce elemental essences. So I think that this is probably going to be very popular, but I wonder how much liquidity will actually be put in to earn that. So the amount of Elixir earned by liquidity providers will be based on the total amount of DEC tokens they have locked up in the liquidity pools at the time. Let's see. So, for example, if a player provides 1,000 of liquidity to a pool, then they will earn the specified amount of Elixir tokens periodically in proportion to the 1,000 they have. Now, the amount will stay the same even if the DEC portion of their liquidity position increases or not. If the player either adds or removes liquidity, then the DEC amount token used to calculate will be updated at that time. Okay, so this is just standard liquidity pool stuff. Elixir earnings from the liquidity positions can be claimed at any time and will need to be claimed at least once every 7 days. All right, similar to what we have now. Players will also need to own or rent storage space. Otherwise, anything else will be lost or burned. Please see the storage section. All right, so unlike swap fees, the amount of Elixir is not proportional to the amount of liquidity in the system in total. So players' Elixir earnings will not be reduced if more liquidity is added or vice versa. Instead, the amount of Elixir earned per DEC of liquidity provided will automatically adjust on a periodic basis. Okay, so I think they talked about this already. This will allow the supply of Elixir within the game to naturally adjust based on demand and avoid a situation where the resource is either too abundant and therefore worthless or too scarce. So this is very, 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 very similar to the way that the DEC algorithm used to work when it was still the play to earn reward token. So, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with this. I mean, maybe Elixir ends up being the thing that boosts us into the next whatever, just because people need to have more DEC. Because, okay, for a quick walk down memory lane. Sorry, I know this is a land thing, but it's just like the more DEC is put in there, at the time, the more DEC, or the higher the price of DEC was, the more DEC was printed. So in the same way, it sounds as though the more DEC you put into the liquidity pool, the more Elixir is going to be put out there. Now, here's the thing. I almost feel like there's just going to be too much Elixir because many people are going to be chasing that 5%, 5 to 10% fee that they're going to be paid as a liquidity provider. So it's like, yeah, Elixir's cool, and maybe Elixir's like awesome, right? But at the end of the day, if I'm providing liquidity, then it's probably going to be because I want to take advantage of those fees. And, that being said, it's like, if I want to take advantage of the fees and I have Elixir that I don't really care for, what am I going to do with it? I'm probably just going to dump it on the market, right? Try to get some kind of value for it. But we'll end up seeing how required it is. All right, so Elixir's plan to also be able to purchase for a fixed amount of DEC or voucher tokens. All right, so it sounds like they think that's not even going to be enough, but maybe that's only in the beginning. Okay, resource storage. All right, so players will need to ensure that they have adequate storage, or as mentioned in the building section, most buildings by default contain a relatively small amount of storage space. All right, this is intended to provide players enough storage space for a typical operation of a building without needing to build or purchase more. It is important to note that both storage space and resource inventory is handled per region for each player. This means that if a player has multiple mine buildings in a single region, then the ore storage available for that player will be the sum of the entire mines in the region. So when harvesting from the mines, the ore the player receives will go into the player's inventory for that region. Additionally, storage space is always allocated for for a minimum period of 24 hours. This means that if a player harvests 100 grain from a farm building, then the 100 granary storage units will be taken up to store that grain for 24 hours, even if the player transfers, sells, or otherwise uses the grain immediately afterwards. This is intended to prevent players from being able to get by with only a very small amount of storage by moving resources in and out very quickly. Interesting. Okay, so it's going to lock up your storage space no matter what for 24 hours. I wonder how much. So maybe what does this reduce? I guess this would reduce maybe a lot of like trading unless you have the storage for it. If you just wanted to buy like a plot of land and be trading resources left and right, which again, I don't know how you're going to do with a 5 to 10% fee, because it's like the arbitrage on that has got to be insane in order for you to come out ahead. But interesting approach. I don't think it's the wrong thing to do. All right, so storage rental. If a player acquires resources within a region in which they do not have enough storage, they will have the option to automatically purchase storage space using local infrastructure in the region using DEC. I'm assuming this is a burn DEC method. Storage space from the local infrastructure is available in unlimited quantity, and like all storage, it must be rented for a minimum of 24 hours, even if the resources are moved. Okay, so the cost of storage rental will be vary based on the type of resources being stored and the salinization rate. So this sounds like yet another DEC sink or DEC burn. Since most buildings provide enough built-in storage for typical operations, storage rentals should usually only need to occur in special circumstances, such as when a player is gathering resources to be able to construct or upgrade a building. Okay, so pretty cool. If a player harvests, purchases, or otherwise acquires resources in a region for which they do not have the available, and they choose not to purchase the additional temporary storage, then the resources will be lost, aka burned. Okay, we're getting to the final section of this: storage, buildings, and providing liquidity. All right, if a player would like to have additional storage for certain resources within a particular region, they can build a storage building on a vacant land plot within that region. Please see the resource storage buildings section for more. All right, the most common reason that players would require additional storage within a region is to provide liquidity to the local resource marketplace. Please see the internal market section. All right. Players must maintain enough storage space for each region for any resource being used to provide liquidity. The amount of storage space required will be based on the amount of resources initially put in. All right, cool. For example, if a player provides 1,000 Sparkstone into the liquidity pool, then 1,000 units of Sparkstone storage space will be used and no longer be available in that region until the player removes some or all of their liquidity. The amount of Sparkstone. Okay, if a player withdraws Sparkstone, and then the amount of storage space used will be updated based on how much they now have in the liquidity pool. For example, let's say they provided 1,000, and after trading, after some trading, they ended up with 1,500. Then if they go to remove even one Sparkstone worth of liquidity from the pool, they will either need to have an additional 500 storage available, which they'll need to rent, or they will lose 1/3 of their liquidity position. That is fascinating. So if you get more because impermanent loss benefits you, meaning that actually the value of like Sparkstone goes down in relation to DEC, so therefore you have more Sparkstone, you'll have to purchase more. Whereas DEC doesn't actually take up any space. On the other hand, if the initial 1,000 Sparkstone in liquidity pool drops to 600 at the time, meaning that Sparkstone actually rises in value, then the 400 units will be freed up and become available within that region. Okay, this is fascinating. So it is very, very in-depth. And there's still a lot of things that we haven't gotten here, right? How much is it going to cost in order to be able to rent, how much Elixir will be, well, actually, I think we know how much Elixir will be coming out. It's going to be 1-to-1 with DEC tokens. So, salinization rate, how that's all going to work. There's a lot here. I think I gave enough thoughts as I went along. The only or final thing that I'll say about this, and I might even make another video once I have a chance to wrap my head around it more, is I wonder if liquidity is going to be very low initially, because people will need plots in order to provide it. There is going to be a cap on the amount of liquidity that can be placed. If you think about it, there's only 150,000 plots. So that might actually be fascinating to see if people need certain resources and you can provide most of the liquidity in those pools and you're just raking in all those fees. There could be a lot of market activity, a lot of market volatility, but you could also come out like a bandit in that case, right? So I wonder if there's going to be a game within a game here, a game within a game within a game of, you don't even care about doing anything with your land, right? Like you're not going to produce anything. You're just going to buy storage space because you know that you can, buy up a ton of resources and just earn from them passively. You don't have to work your things. You don't have to do anything. I guess you still need to work your land plots, but you don't need to like worry about anything else, which again, this is all going to be fascinating because it's going to be a race to see who can figure out where the arbitrage opportunities are, right? If it's about, if it's about farming grain or mining different resources, people will be shifting back and forth, buying plots in order to take advantage of that. So the market's going to be very dynamic. I'm excited for this. I have no idea when it's going to come through. Like I said, I think this is a 2025 probably thing, just because there seems to be so much. We're on only the fourth, part of this white paper reveal so far. I think there's going to be 5 parts. Matt said like 4 to 5 parts. So we've gotten 4 already. I'm assuming there's going to be 1 more before the end of the year. But if this is it, it's still a lot. It's still a lot, and we still don't have a lot of the details. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm going to go ahead and end the video here because we have been rambling on for a while. But curious to know what you guys think. Otherwise, I'll catch you all in the next video and see you around the game. Take care.